Okay, we're not here to teach you to be couch potatoes, or let alone to be sponges on other people. Okay, that kind of has never really been a spiritual ideal, to be a sponge on other people. No, I mean, sometimes people get this idea too. You know, they say, well, I'll just go to the other extreme then. You know, instead of like getting a job and paying my bills and, you know, working long hours and so forth, I'll just quit and be a yogi. You know? Although how you do that without any money, I don't really know. You find a yoga teacher who doesn't charge you anything, and then you just do yoga all the time, or just, you know, I'll just meditate, or, you know, I'll just, you know, practice the Dharma, and, you know, and sleep on somebody else's couch all the time. Oh, I've known plenty of people like this, actually. You know, you get in certain circles, and they're kind of thick on the ground, actually, of like Dharma bums. Whose idea of getting unbusy is to just throw themselves on somebody else to take care of them, you know, to pay their bills, to, you know, make sure they have a place to stay, and so forth. Some people accuse Gandhi of this, actually. Did you know this? Gandhi was financed. He had a great patron, Bata, who's, you know, the shoe company. Yeah, the original Bata was a huge industrialist in India, and Bata very famously told Gandhi one time, you know, it takes a lot of money to keep you in poverty. Yeah, you know, because somebody's got to pay for it. You know. So that's not a real option either. You know, it's not a real, at least as a, you know, from an ethical or spiritual point of view, it's not an option to just say, well, somebody else should take care of me because I'm so spiritual. You know. I'm doing like really important spiritual things like sitting around meditating and doing downward facing dogs all the time. and I just can't be bothered with like finding a way to pay my bills and all of that. Somebody else should do that for me. Not a real option. Okay. So where can we find this kind of middle ground? Middle ground between spending all our time keeping busy and having no time for any kind of like reflective, spiritual, meditative, contemplative, relaxing, you know, aspects of our life on the one hand. And on the other hand, you know, just like buggering off and just saying, well, you know, I'll just be a spiritual person full time and somebody else can like clean up after me and figure out how to pay for me. Okay? There's got to be a middle ground between those two. Okay? So that's what we'll try to find. The direction I think that we can gain, we can find direction in some of the ancient spiritual texts. If you can't find direction for how to live in the modern life in the spiritual texts, and the spiritual texts aren't useful anymore, just throw them away. But I think we can. You know, I think the reason why these texts are thousands of years old is because they're kind of perpetually relevant. They don't become irrelevant. You know, if they become irrelevant, just get rid of them. There's no point. You see, no point to like a spiritual life if it's not, you know, what do you call it? Mainstreamable into our lives. Okay, if it's not relevant, there's no point to it. So, you know, I've picked verses from very, very old Sanskrit texts, but I do believe that they're relevant. They can help us, you know, kind of figure out how to live well, how to live happily in our modern conditions, okay? It will require some changes, of course, okay? Part of the, and so there may be resistance among some or all of you, or all of us, I should say, okay? Because part about, you know, busyness is that it's addictive. Okay? It's addictive. And part of modern busyness is looking at the smartphone all the goddamn time, which is extremely addictive, as Singaporeans know. I mean, you know, we've been out in the city, you know, we've been here many times, but, you know, it's just amazing. I mean, especially if you live like we do out in the country and you come to, you know, pretty much any city, but especially places like Singapore, you know, every second or third person is staring at their smartphone. on the street. I mean, literally, okay? You know? And so that's part of busyness, actually. Part of busyness is keeping, occupied all the time. Keeping occupied all the time. And the internet in general and the smartphones in particular are very seductive. It's very seductive to, keep yourself entertained or occupied all the time. And not have, moments or hours or days where you're not plugged in. Okay? And, some people hear that nowadays, they start freaking out. What do you mean not plugged in, What if I miss a text? Well, what if you do? What would happen then, exactly? You see? But we just become so accustomed to this kind of like instantaneous communication, instantaneous receiving and broadcasting. We were at, 2 years ago, at the All Asia Yoga Conference in Hong Kong. It's an annual thing. And it draws not just people from Asia, but from around the world. Huge thing. Thousands and thousands of people come. And some of the finest yoga teachers from around the world are holding seminars and like that. So we're not the finest yoga teachers in the world, but we had our own little seminar. And I started talking, about yoga philosophy. Well, they definitely didn't want to hear about that. Yoga philosophy. So they were all like antsy and looking at their watches, like, when's this part going to be over so that we can do some exercise? And so like Cindy was going to, was going to lead an asana class, and so she started. And we noticed people, these are supposed to be like, kind of really committed yogis who've traveled, to come to an international yoga conference like that. They're watching their cell phone. They're taking selfies of themselves in, in yoga poses, and then presumably like posting on Instagram. Here I am at the yoga. Do you mind getting it? And so, we talked to some friends. Copper Crow, some of you may know him, who runs Pure Yoga. He was there, and he's a good friend of ours. And we said, what's going on? These yogis are taking selfies of themselves. They can't be away from their cell phone for the time to do a yoga class. And he says, oh yeah, very common. We have to confiscate their phones from them before we let them in. And sometimes they smuggle them in and they hide them under the mat. This is a sign of a problem. Okay? No, this is a sign of an addiction, a full-on addiction, like a crack addiction, like a heroin addiction, like an ice addiction. Is a sign of an addiction. So many of us, in some form or another, are addicted to being busy, are addicted to being occupied. Other people are addicted to being busy in another way, of just working all the time, at the job. And there's lots of reasons for that too. But it's not necessary. It's not necessary to work all the time. Okay, and it's not a healthy way to live. Okay, that's the kind of bottom line. It's not necessary and it's not healthy. It's not conducive to happiness. Okay? The opposite isn't necessarily conducive to happiness either. Just, quitting your job and throwing away all your, the cell phones and throwing away your computers. That's not the solution either. It's not reasonable, I think, in the modern world to think that that's going to be a very popular movement. You know what I mean? Some people might choose to do it, but very few, I think. Very few. It's only going to get worse. Okay? I mean, it's not going to be like there's going to be less possibilities for interconnectivity over time. It's going to be like slower bandwidths and stuff like that. It's not happening. It's going to increase exponentially. We had a conversation with somebody who works at Google, and I'm not supposed to tell anybody this because it's all hush-hush, okay? So just keep it quiet among ourselves here. But, remember Google Glasses? Google Glass? That's still happening, okay? They put out a beta form of it a year or two ago, and there was some problems or something. They couldn't get to Starbucks fast enough on the glasses. And for those of you who don't know, these are glasses that connect you to the internet. put the glasses on and you could, you could find out where the nearest Starbucks is, you can check your email, all like that, all with these glasses. That's still coming. And then what many science fiction writers have predicted now, recently, is also in the works. The chip, the computer chip inside the head. They are developing it. They're developing a computer chip that, someday, and probably not too in the distant future. I mean, many of you will live to see the day, I think, where you will be able to access the internet 24/7 without any devices, without any external devices. Okay? So it's not going to get any less than it is now. It's only going to get more. So it's, I would say it's rather crucial for us at this point in time to learn how to handle it, to learn how to control it instead of being controlled by it. You see, right now we are controlled by it. Pretty much all of us. I've often thought that this time is sort of similar, in some ways, to the invention of television. I remember, I'm old enough now to remember when my father brought in the first television to our house. I was like 4 or 5 years old. And when television was, kind of mainstreamed into, ordinary middle-class homes, there was just no conception that there was anything wrong with just watching it all the time. It was cool. It was new. It was cool. Look, you turn it on, there's moving things inside the screen. Look, they're moving. They're talking. Look, how'd they get in there? And I remember growing up, no rules about watching television. I watched countless hours of television as a child. Okay, I know Gilligan's Island backwards and forwards. Shows like that. There was just no restrictions on it. And there's, it's kind of the same now. For grown-ups, not never mind children, kind of the same now for grown-ups. There's just no conception that there's anything wrong with being plugged in all the time. Okay, having the smartphone in front of your face all the time. It's just, look what you can do. Look how user-friendly. Look at the graphics. Look, I can watch YouTube. Things about ukuleles all the time. Guys playing a ukulele all the time. Well, look, there he is. And it is cool. There's no sense in talking about how it isn't cool. It is cool, but we're not in control of it. You see, it's in control of us. So part of I think the general message of a spiritual life is to take control of your life. To take control of your life, to stop blaming others for your problems, stop blaming outside events, stop blaming outside technology, stop blaming the bosses, stop blaming other people, and take control of your life. And so, we have to learn how to do that with technology. We have to learn how to do that with our time. We have to learn how to take back time, take back our time, and then we have the option. If we're in control of it, we have the option. Well, what do I want to do now? Do I want to watch another YouTube video, or do I want to just hang out, talk to my family for a change? Stuff like that. You have freedom. You regain freedom. So I personally think this is, back to the whole mindfulness thing. I think that mindfulness is a survival skill. Okay, it's not kind of optional anymore, I think. If we're going to survive this age that we live in, we're going to have to learn techniques like mindfulness. Mindfulness means that you keep your mind on one thing, okay? It's the opposite of multitasking. Opposite of multitasking. And we're all so accustomed now to multitasking that we're driving ourselves crazy. And so somebody says, well, be mindful and gain some peace in your life and concentrate on one thing. We say, yeah, I'd kind of like to do that because I haven't done that for 10 years. There are retreats even now, and there will be more of them, that will cost you hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars to go to some retreat center in Malaysia or Bali or wherever. And the first thing they'll do is confiscate all your devices. You'll pay money for people to take away your smartphone, to take away your cell phone, to take away your portable computer, so you can get some peace. You know, so why not try to learn how to do that voluntarily? You know, we'll offer some suggestions on how to do that for free. You know, you don't have to pay thousands of dollars and go to Bali. But you do have to make some changes, you see? You have to, and to make some changes, you have to recognize that there's a problem here. That this isn't conducive, this kind of way of life is not conducive to the happiness and peace that we all seek in life. It's not delivering it, you know? It's not delivering any peace. It's delivering more jangledness in our lives. More anxiety, more stress, more feeling that we don't have any time. Okay? So let's look at a couple of verses and, you know, and see if we can get some direction from the ancient text. Mostly tonight we'll be concentrating on the problem, but we'll slip in some solutions for people who don't want to come or too busy to come for the rest of the courses, the class. So this is from the Bhagavad Gita under the title Defining the Problem. When activity prevails, Arjuna, for those of you who know, this is a reference to one of the three gunas, rajas. The rajas guna is the constituent or the energy in the cosmos that keeps us, that's responsible for activity. Then there's one that's kind of like peace, sattva, and there's one that's like inertia, tamas. So when activity prevails, Arjuna, then greed, hustle and bustle, endless projects, restlessness, and the obsession with action arise. Sound familiar? This is, Bhagavad Gita is at least 2,000 years old. So, you know, I think this is a nice way of summarizing our age, you know, or a certain aspect of our age. Busyness. When activity prevails, then greed. You see, that's the consumerism part. You know, why we work long hours so that we can have enough money to buy the iPhone 6S Plus, is it not? The 6S? Because that old iPhone 5S, you know, is just so outdated. Right? That one from last year. Greed, hustle and bustle. Hustle and bustle means pravritti in Sanskrit, means just constant activity. Endless projects. Endless, like, thinking about things to do. And restlessness, which is the opposite of calm. It is the opposite of calm. And the obsession with action. Karma spraha. Obsession with action is another way of talking about busyness for its own sake. The feeling that we always have to be doing something. And we'll look at verses from ancient texts that define suffering, or samsara, for those of you who know the term. Samsara, the cycle of suffering, is defined as the feeling that we always need to be doing something. Isn't that interesting? Okay? You know, it's not defined by like the suffering. It's not defined by like the nasty person at work that keeps irritating me. Or my ex-wife. It's not the cause of suffering. It's not even, you know, greed or anger or some of the, you know, what they call mental afflictions. It's that feeling of compulsion. Compulsion to always have to keep busy. See, that's the opposite of peace. Okay? In all religions, the goal is some form or another of peace, isn't it? Peace of mind, so, you know, some kind of like feeling of contentment or satisfaction. And the compulsion that we feel to always keep busy is the opposite of that. Okay? So I'm trying to like sell this as the problem. Okay? Am I doing a pretty good job yet? Yeah. Okay. No, I mean, if you don't see it as a problem, you will never seek out a solution. Okay? You just keep going down and down and down. Until you bottom out, I think that, you know, we will live to see the day where, I think maybe we're already seeing it, where people are bottoming out on constant busyness. You know, like those stories that you hear about, you know, Chinese kids and Korean kids who play video games for 4 days straight without eating and so like that, and then they have to be locked up and go through detox. You know, some kind of detox from the video games. I mean, that's just, I think that's the tip of the iceberg. Actually. That's just the kind of forerunner of what will happen to many, many people over the next couple of years, actually. This is from another text called the Ashtavakra Gita. Some of you may be familiar with it. Great text from the Vedanta tradition. How can there be happiness for one whose heart is scorched by the heat of the sun? And then he says, well, what's that metaphor mean? And he defines it. The pain of having things that need to be done. Kartavya in Sanskrit means to be done. Dukkha. Dukkha means suffering. The suffering of having things that have to be done all the time. Or you could say, the feeling of having, the feeling that there are things that need to be done all the time. Okay? The suffering that goes along with that. Without the refreshing shower of the nectar of tranquility. Prashama. Prashama in Sanskrit is related to the word shanti. And how many people have not heard the word shanti? Sanskrit word has almost become English nowadays, right? Shanti. When you come to a yoga studio like this, oftentimes at the end of the yoga class, everyone sit down and go, Om, Shanti, 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 Om. Right? What are you saying there? It says, Om, relax, relax, chill out, Om. No, I mean, if you translate it into modern English, that's exactly what it means. How come they don't do that once in a while in yoga class? Why does it all have to be disguised in Sanskrit? Say what you mean. Chillax, chillax, chillax. At the end, No, yoga. Almost every yoga class begins with ends with what they call corpse pose, right? Shavasana. Shavasana. What's Shavasana? What are you doing in Shavasana? In general, you could say yoga is one big exercise in doing nothing. Okay? And because that was so radical, then modern yoga said, no, let's make it way more aerobic. So that we don't have to do nothing. Not really. One of my first yoga teachers was a woman in Arizona who was, even when I knew her, was in her 70s. She's now in her 80s probably, if she's alive still. And she was telling me how yoga was first introduced in California in the 1960s. Okay, in the 1960s, yoga was only for weirdos. No, I mean, nobody did yoga except for like the kooks in California. And she was one of those kooks, and she was telling me how yoga used to be done. They would do one pose, and then they do Shavasana. Then they do another pose, and then they do Shavasana. Shavasana, for those of you who don't, you just lie there, like a corpse. That's what I call a corpse pose. You don't do anything. So you do one kind of bend or stretch or something like that, that's Shavasana. Okay? No, I mean, that's kind of the original yoga. What's meditation exactly? What are you doing in meditation? Which is one of the reasons why some people resist meditation. Well, that sounds boring. I'm not doing anything. And so then the meditation teachers think of all kinds of stuff you need to think about. Instead of just sitting there thinking about nothing, which people are kind of know is well, I don't want to do that. So then they say, well, think about this, think about that, think about this. Okay, good. I can think about stuff. My eyes closed and sitting still, I can still think about stuff all the time. But if you look at the history of meditation and some of the, in the deeper understandings of meditation, the deepest kinds of meditation are what they call non-conceptual. Non-conceptual means you're not thinking about nothing. Okay, you put your mind in blank space. And then people hear that, I don't want to do that. So it sounds like doing nothing. I said, well, yeah, that's what it means. All right, next verse. Samsara. This is one of my favorite verses from all of the spiritual literature. This one, if I were the kind of person that did this, I would cut it out and put it on my refrigerator with a magnet on it. Okay? Like a magnet of I Heart Singapore or something like that. Samsara. Everyone know what samsara means? The samsara means the cycle of pain, the cycle of suffering, over and over and over again. Samsara is nothing other than having something that needs to be done. The Sanskrit is not ambiguous. It's really strong and really straightforward. And it's quite shocking to read that. Okay? Okay? Come on, I mean, can't some sort of be like more than that? I mean, you know. And so I've thought about this verse for several years now, and I think the more you think about it, the more there is to this, the truth of this, okay? This feeling of compulsion, this feeling of that I need to do something. I need to improve things, I need to fix things, I need to develop things, I need to advance things. You see, that need, that feeling of, that anxiousness is the opposite of contentment. Okay? The opposite of contentment. And contentment is the goal. In spiritual life, contentment is the goal. And then people don't like that either. People are discontent with the idea that contentment is the goal. I mean, because we're so discontent, we're so discontent with everything that we're discontent even with the idea that contentment should be the goal. You say, well, I don't. Contentment, what does that mean? I just don't do anything anymore? And that's not what contentment means. Contentment is not the same as complacency. Okay? Contentment means that you are content with what there is to do. Okay? With what there is that comes your way to do. So you have a job to do, you're content with the job. You have bills to pay, you're content with the fact that you have to work and pay your bills. You're content with your life. Which is the opposite of this feeling that we always need to change it. We always need to fix it, to improve it, and so forth. So this, I think, is very, very profound. Samsara is nothing other than something, than having something that needs to be done. The sages do not see that. They conform to emptiness and are formless, unchangeable, and taintless, which means that, they feel free. You can also say that this is the opposite of freedom. This compulsion, this need to do something to change things all the time is the opposite of freedom. Compulsion is the opposite of freedom. Compulsion is the opposite of freedom because it's not a matter of choice. It's a feeling. I have to do something. Oftentimes unconsciously. Yeah? One whose mind is bewildered is always distracted because of his agitation, even when not doing anything at all. Okay, so not doing anything at all means physically. So even people, if the mind isn't at peace, you see, even when you're not doing anything with your body, you're still distracted. You're still bewildered, distracted, and agitated. Right? Everyone knows about this. This is called worry. Right? You can keep very, very busy even while not doing anything physically. In your mind, right? For example, thinking about all the things that you need to do. Okay? You can sit around ruining your peace and quiet, your rest, your relaxation, thinking about all the things that you have to do and stressing out about that. One whose mind is bewildered is always distracted. The word, by the way, in Sanskrit for distraction is Vyagra. Does that sound familiar to you? No, they took it from Viagra. They took it from the Sanskrit. Viagra, they took it from this because it means, among other things, agitate. It means getting busy. Yeah, it means getting busy. It means agitated, but also excited. The skillful one remains calm. Near apula means without agitation, without anxiety. The skillful one remains calm even when doing what must be done. And Cindy, in like 5 minutes, is going to start talking about the fact that there are things that we have to do in life. Okay? But this verse is pointing out that you can do what needs to be done. And in fact, you must do what needs to be done. We all have responsibilities in life. But you can do that calmly. Okay? The skillful one, the one who is like wised up to how to live a proper life, can keep very, very active without stress at all. So the next verse, the next couple of verses I'll do kind of quickly because we want to get to what Cindy has to say here. Why we're so busy. Why we're so busy. That's Roman numeral. Everyone have a hand up, by the way? Why are we so busy? So I'll just give some suggestions here. We're so busy not because there's so much to do, but because we think that we need to do so much. Hear the difference? It's not that there's so much to do, but that we think that there's so much to do. We think that we need to do something all the time, okay? So busyness is mental. Busyness is, interior. It's not an external thing. It's not a quantifiable thing. It's not a, so many things I have to do and now I'm busy. I was saying before, I've known people who are just active all the time. Really, they get amazing amounts of things done. My PhD advisor, she was busy all the time, and she would write books one after another, as well as doing a million other things. And I asked her, like, how do you find time to write all your books and everything? She says, well, if I have 5 minutes, I sit down and write. And then I pick up the kids from soccer, and I do this and I do that. Just to like take whatever and maximize it, you see. But no stress, okay? Then there are people that got 2 things to do all day long and they're freaking out. No, he's like, I'm so busy, I got a 10 o'clock appointment, and then after that at 2 I have to go to the doctor, and so stressed and busy, It's not a matter of quantity. It's a mental thing. So it's not because there's so much to do, but because we think that there's so much to do. That's why we're busy. Busyness is a choice. Okay? It's a choice. We can choose to not feel busy, even while staying active. And that's important, okay? It's important to take that power back. The power to choose, okay? And again, like I said before, to not cede power over your life to other people, or to events, or to the bosses, or to anyone else, but to take responsibility and power for yourself. Okay? Yeah. And I'll talk more about that on Tuesday, I think. For those of you who can come to Cocoon, do a little public talk there on that problem, on that topic, from victimhood to mastery, I think we call it. So stop feeling like a victim. Stop feeling like a victim of your busyness. You've chosen to be busy, okay? Again, we can't always choose to be inactive, but we can choose to be busy or not busy, even inactivity, okay? All right. Know that it is activity, this is from the Bhagavad Gita again. Know that it is activity whose very essence is passion, raga. And passion is another way of talking about desire. So again, back to the theme of choosing to be busy. We not only choose to be busy, but we desire to be busy. See, we've been kind of like conditioned to want to be busy all the time, partly because we have also been conditioned to think that this is a sign of our worth, our self-worth and our worth to others. Know that activity whose very essence is passion arises from craving and attachment. Craving and attachment. Craving, Trishna, very important word in Buddhism. And attachment, Sangha. It binds the embodied being to attachment to action. So we're attached to action. We're attached to busyness. And at maybe a deeper level, especially nowadays, we crave and are attached to be recognized, to be known, to have thumbs up on our postings. No, it's a major theme in the modern life. This craving for fame. You see it all over the place. From beginning with the whole Facebook culture. No, I mean all of Facebook is really about how many friends do I have? How many thumbs up do I get? How recognized, was my post. Here's what I had for dinner, How many people, are affirming me, in the photo of my spaghetti or whatever. So, the next one. An action is known to have the nature of the constituent of activity, rajas, when it is done with great effort by one who is driven by desire and egotism. So there it is, ahamkara, egotism. So even back then they were noticing that, people are really busy because they want to be, kind of known. They want to be famous. They want to be recognized. And that's the ego. The ego wants to be, enlarged and affirmed, inflated. And much of our problems in general in life are because of ego. You all recognize that, right? The ego is insatiable. Have you noticed? Never going to get enough thumbs up on Facebook to feel like, the ego has been, has been fed. The ego always is hungry, okay? The ego is a big problem. Big problem, you could say. An actor is proclaimed to be endowed with the constituent of activity when they are passionate, desirous of the fruits of action. Karma phala, the fruits of action. So another reason why we keep so busy is because we hope to have a better life in the future by being really busy in the present, isn't it? Especially when it comes to work and stuff like that. Right? We're going to work like 12 hours, 16 hours now so that in 10 years or 20 years or 40 years from now, we can reap the benefits of that and maybe retire on a Greek island or something like that. In the meantime, the present is passing us by. So I'll come back to this theme in another class. But this kind of futuristic orientation that we have sometimes when it comes to this busyness thing. I'll stay busy now so that in the future my life will be better. This is bad thinking. This is just bad thinking. All kinds of things can happen to you between now and the future, including you croak. No, there's no guarantee about the future. You cannot predict the future. You cannot predict the future. Everyone lived long enough to realize that. You just cannot predict the future. So if we're living all of our lives, all of our present lives with one or both eyes on some future prize later on, we're letting life just slip away, slip through our fingers. The only time that exists is the present. Is that true or not? Yeah. So if you're not in the present, living in the present, which is another way of talking about what they call mindfulness, living in the present, then you're not living at all, actually, you see. I gave a talk here at Standard Chartered Bank to a bunch of executives one time when I was here in Singapore. What is that, a year or two ago? 2 years ago. And even then the whole mindfulness thing was coming on, and I told these execs, I bet you, $1 million that, within a year or two at the most, you'll be hiring